Well, the Brewers do make a trade to get Carlos Santana, but is it enough? We'll talk about that coming up here. Who might the Brewers also be interested in? And an old friend, Mike Wickett, joins us in the show as well. All that next here on Locked On Brewers.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Leaguer for the 37-year-old first baseman from the Pittsburgh Pirates has bounced around a few teams. We're going to get into that because certainly the Brewers do need a first baseman. We'll talk about that coming up here on the show. Also, who might the Brewers be interested in? And maybe is this guy even on the market? We'll talk about that coming up as well. And Mike Wickett, old friend, we were a co-host for 7 years on Milwaukee Sports Radio. We're going to talk to him as well. Still, longtime Brewer fan. We're going to get his take. He keeps his pulse on the Milwaukee Brewers. So we'll see what old Wick has got to say a little bit later on in the show. I almost call him Wixie. He doesn't want me to call him that. I called him that one time. He hates it. Mike Wickett joins us coming up here in a little bit. I'm a host of Locked On Brewers, longtime sports talk show host here in the state of Wisconsin. And work for AP Radio, KFIZ sports director, you name it. I do a lot of things. Channel 4 a little bit later on today out of Friday. So good to have you along. And thank you, everybody, all you everydayers out there joining us on Locked On Podcasts, Google, Spotify, Apple, Amazon. We're on all the major ones. I list them all on my Twitter account. And, of course, we're on YouTube. Just go to YouTube, hit that subscribe button, or go to Locked On Brewers on the search, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell there. You're going to get good old Freems Monday through Friday here on Locked On Brewers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Thank you, all you everydayers out there. All you everydayers who follow us on Twitter as well. Right there. If you're watching us on YouTube, Chuck Freeman, Freimund. Wickett will be coming up here in a little bit. First, some talk about the trade the Brewers made. They didn't wait right to the deadline, and I've been telling you, if they don't make a move, this tells me they're not serious. Now, they did go out and get Carlos Santana. A little bit of mixed feelings about it. Number one, I'm glad they've upgraded the first base spot because Carlos Santana, even though he's 37, he keeps himself in great shape, from what I understand. Very good defensively, okay, on a team that's already pretty good defensively. We saw that pop that he hit against the Brewers. Does it count, though? When it was on, what's his name, who the Brewers released? But he's a guy I'm liking a little bit better than I first did when it first came out. Okay. At first I was like, all right, is this another Milwaukee Brewers move? Getting a guy who's at the end of his career, not a lot of money left on that $6 million contract that he signed this year. Is this fall in line with everything else the Milwaukee Brewers have done over the years? Time will tell, but he's a veteran leader. He's been in some postseason. The Brewers, I don't think, really gave up a heck of a lot for him. Okay. This low A guy, this A guy, I'm fine. I'm fine with it. Now, if that's the last thing the Brewers do, I won't be fine with it. Okay. But Carlos Santana, a guy who's going to be in the heart of the order right now for the Milwaukee Brewers, a guy who deserves to be in the heart of the order for the Milwaukee Brewers. Put him at first base and see what he does. You got some time with Tellez, but you know what? Tellez hadn't earned that spot. Had Tellez done his job, we wouldn't be going out and getting a Carlos Santana right now. So, yeah, upgrade. Should that preclude them from looking for anybody else? No, not at all. A lot of you been asking about Juan Soto on Twitter and all that. And it sounds like the San Diego Padres are floating that name out there just to see what they could kind of offers they can get. Now, he won't be a free agent until 2025. And that's when the contract is going to bust loose. Because remember, he turned down like a contract for 15 years. It was 444 million or 440 million. That's going to pay right on 30 million a year. He turned that deal down. He turned that deal down already. So from the Padres, it would cost you Jackson Chourio. It would. Now, what you'd have to weigh in, if you could even get this guy, is, okay, by having Jackson Chourio under control for 6 years when he gets here, or would you be able to pay for his? Well, you're not going to be able to keep Juan Soto anyway. You'd have him for next year, the rest of this year and next year. It wouldn't be worth getting trading Jackson Chourio unless you were going to go all in and sign Juan Soto, who's still an ascending player at 23, 24 years old. Got 20 home runs this year. Yeah, I would love him here, but of course under baseball rules, no salary cap, salaries are out of whack. You wouldn't be able to afford the guy, so he's probably would get traded to a big market. As would Nolan Arenado. The Cardinals would never trade him here. But apparently the Cardinals are listing for offers for Arenado. I wish we would have got him from Colorado a year ago, or a few years ago, I should say, when the price was much cheaper. But, Arenado's 32 years old. He's still banging home runs. He's still great defensively. God, can you imagine Nolan Arenado on the Brewers? Can you imagine Arenado, Santana at first? Frelick, if he continues to hit in right field, then he'd be done. My God, that would be great. Never going to happen. Those are two moves that are never going to happen, Soto and Arenado. But Carlos Santana, time will tell. We'll see how he does in the lineup tonight against the Braves. All right, we're going to get the Mike Wickett coming here in a little bit. The Brewers play a first of 3 with the Braves coming up tonight. And looking forward to the series. The Brewers did drop 2 or 3 to the Braves last weekend at AmFam Field. I'm just going to check real quick here, see if there's any changes in the Braves, because the Braves are to be announced as far as their pitchers. I don't see anybody right now. I'm going to continue to look for that. Adrian Hauser on the mound, 620, the broadcast on Sirius and Sirius XM app. Search Brewers, and you're going to find all 162 of the Brewers and Braves. All right. This show is brought to you in part by eBay Motors. eBay Motors. I go to eBay. I love eBay. And now eBay Motors is a thing. For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. The same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can make sure every part fits just right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage. Look for the green check. No, the part will fit or your money back, because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game. When you shop at eBay Motors with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a winner when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Motors, the guaranteed fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply with eBay Motors. We're coming right back. And we'll talk to our old friend, Mike Wickett. That's coming up next here on Locked On Brewers. Welcome back to Locked On Brewers. I'm your host, Chuck Freeman. And joining us next is a man who I did sports talk with for 7 years in Milwaukee. Did a terrific job with me. Then he went off to greener pastures in Kansas City. But he still follows our sports teams quite well. My friend, Mike Wickett. Chuck and Wickett for 7 years. Wick, you're in Iowa now and Lambeau Field. Thanks for coming on.
I should have made the virtual background, maybe, I don't know, Miller Park, because it's always Miller Park. I don't care if it's AmFam Field. It's always Miller Park. And the Sears Tower, it's always what it's going to be. Freems, first of all, congratulations. I know you got the sports director job at your radio gig. Congrats. I'm very impressed.
Just trying to survive.
The man has worked at more radio stations in the state of Wisconsin than anyone ever. I think that has to be true, right? Like, you have to hold the state. That alone should get you into the Wisconsin Broadcasting Hall of Fame.
Means I've been fired all those times too.
But still, you survive like a cockroach, Chuck. You keep coming back.
Yeah, I do survive.
You do, man. That's good for you. Good to see you again.
Well, it's great. I had to get you on. And people always, ask me, you should get Wickett on. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to wait till an off day. Someone mentioned this to me on the golf course. Well, no, because I do a half hour in the game, and it's like I don't have time for a guest because I'm rambling on for a half hour. But I said, on an off day, next off day, this guy asked me on the golf course, I'm going to get him on. Absolutely. And I know you still follow the sports teams, even though you're in Iowa doing great things there. And, but you worked with me and you still follow the Milwaukee Brewers, Packers, and Bucks and all that. I know that you do.
I was doing a podcast for a really long time called Wickett on Wisconsin. And then you know how it is, Chuck. Life happens. I've got 3 kids. I do a morning show on a rock radio station here in Des Moines on Laser 103.3. And it's like, you have to find the balance of work, family, being a fan, and just watching games and enjoying them, and then also sleep. Because I get up at 4 a.m. You know how it is. You get up at 4. So those times when I would record a podcast or whatever in the middle of the week, I'm not as good of a dad afterwards because we have a nanny that's here till 3, and I take care of the kids afterwards till my wife comes home. So it's like if I don't get a nap, I'm a grumpy. Now I'm 40. I'm 42, Chuck. I'm getting up there.
42.
I'm 42 now, man. I need that sleep. And so I had to discontinue all things out of the bubble of necessity, I guess. You know what I mean? Like I had to just figure out what was important. But I absolutely, like when the Bucks won the championship, I had a great night solo, just me drinking Miller Lights, having a good time, smoking cigars, following these Brewers playoff runs that never quite get to the next level. Last year, I remember I was watching that Braves series. I know the Braves went on to win the whole thing. I was sitting here watching, like living and dying with every pitch in game 1 of the opening round series. And of course, the Green Bay Packers, if you've noticed anything about my Twitter account at Mike Wickett, it has literally just become a Jordan Love stan account. Like I'm all in on 10. It's, so it's like, yeah, I think I remember our last day together when I was in studio, and one of the things that I told people, I said, it's not like I'm going to ditch these teams. Milwaukee became a part of me. Wisconsin became a part of me. The teams became a part of me. And, I'm looking up above my computer here. I don't know if it's going to show up well, but this is my Milwaukee Bucks finals hat.
There we go.
It's got the championship logo right here. My buddy John sent it to me from Wisconsin from one of the parades. And, those are the teams that still matter. Like I was upset when they lost to the Heat, but it just is what it is. But yeah, the teams are still with me, even though I'm no longer in Wisconsin.
Well, you and I covered the playoffs back in 2011. I'm going to ask you about K-Rod, that trade here in a little bit. But, this year's team, first place, it's not a real flashy team. It's not as talented as that 2011, 2018 team, but still they find themselves, or 2019 even, but they find themselves in first place. What do you think of the thing so far?
I think, like you said, there's nothing flashy. And I know that this is going to be kind of an easy thing to say, but for the last 3 years, we've been waiting for Christian Yelich to get back to where he was before the kneecap blew up that second year that he should have won the MVP, even with the injury that happened the month before the end of the season. He has not been the same guy, the knee, the back. And we know how it is when you have one injury, you favor to the other side, then all of a sudden you hurt that, and then everything else is just not right. So I look at this Brewers team, and the thing I say is, thank God Yelich is doing his thing. Because without Christian Yelich, they're probably a 500 ball club, couple of games under. But when Yelich is playing at this level, an MVP level, this team can compete not only for the Central, but probably for a pennant.
Well, that's the problem. Do they have enough offense? That's the pitching, is great. Corbin Burns and the bullpen and all that. You look at their lineup, Mike, every day, and up and down the line, you got 200 hitters. Do they have enough offense? They went up and got Carlos Santana, a nice move today, but do they have enough offense to cross the finish line to compete with this World Series type pitching they got?
I don't know. The Santana move to me, you know how it is. You get into some of these analytics, Chuck, and you start looking at some of these things. The Brewers have their pitching staff is the most dependent on their defense. The ball's hit in play. They're the most dependent on their defense of any team in Major League Baseball. So if you're going to sacrifice something to bring in a bat, or you have to find a replacement in this, before we get to the trade deadline, you have to find a replacement who's got an adequate glove or an above average glove or can play really, really well in the field. And that's one of those things like, okay, if they sacrifice a guy here, sacrifice a guy there, who's going to make up for it? Carlos Santana's hitting 235. He's got 12 home runs, 9 since the beginning of June. So that's kind of a good thing. But he's an elite defensive first baseman.
Sure is, yes.
And Rowdy goes down. And now you got this guy that can play over there. I think he leads the league in runs prevented, the really nerdy analytics stuff. So when you get to that point, it's like, okay, that the GM, Matt Arnold is looking at all those things, just like Stearns did before, and all these young GMs are doing. They're looking at analytics, looking at runs prevented, and I think that's why the Santana deal makes sense. And the kid they gave up is 18. Who knows if that kid is going to be anything 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now. So I think it's a good move. It doesn't put him over the top, but it's a good spot over there at first base.
I just don't want this, Mike, to be one of those situations where here it is. The Brewers going out and get themselves an aging 37-year-old.
He's 37. That is it, man.
Low-end contract. He's got about $2 million left on that contract. Is this a typical Milwaukee Brewers bargain basement move that they made today?
Yeah, it is. But I think Brewers fans know that unless you're going to pull the trigger and trade, Cheerio out of the minors, unless you're going to trade your stud.
No, I can't do that.
You can't, right? Like you're not, unless you're going to trade him for Shohei Ohtani, you're not going to make that kind of a move if you're the Brewers. But that same Brewers fan who's been watching since, you watched Molitor and Yount when you were young, or maybe you watched Braun and Fielder when you were young, or wherever you were at, you're like, when are they going to make that blockbuster move to go ahead and do it at the deadline? And right now it's like, okay, Carlos Santana is one thing, but they still need more pop. I mean, he hits 235. That's about sixth best on this Brewer team. It's not like you brought in a guy hitting 312.
Yeah, no. And he's going to add some pop, and Rowdy Tellez is giving him nothing at first base.
No.
So, that I am. I hope the Brewers are done with the trade. I hope this is.
They're not going to add an arm because when do they get Woody back? When does Woodruff return?
Well, it's supposed to be mid-August, but this is supposed to be mid-June too. So
yeah,
it's pushing back, and you know how those things go with arms.
So I don't think they're going to add an arm, but I wouldn't be surprised if they found another way to add a bat. But again, that bat's got to be good defensively because of the entire makeup. It's easy for fans to say pitching, hitting, catching, right? Like we don't look deep into this stuff. That's what the guys in that office do. And that's the thing, like you have to factor in everything. We said a little bit here, a little bit there. What's the sum of the whole parts? And that's why the Brewers, especially with their financial constraints, have to be very careful between now and the deadline.
We are talking with Mike Wickett. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers. Mike Wickett, longtime sports talk show host. He and I were together for 7 years on WSSB. Had a cameo on 97.3 for about a week as well back in 2020 during the 2020, I think during the COVID.
Yeah,
year,
yeah.
And if you're watching us on YouTube, somehow Wickett's picture's gone.
I don't know what happened to my picture here.
I don't know. Was that a urine that you?
I don't think so.
Yeah,
there we go.
There you go.
Hey.
Yes, there you're back.
I'm just gonna put the mouse over here and not touch anything.
That's
probably better that way.
You and I were both on the air when Craig Counsell together. When Craig Counsell was hired as a manager, he's done a great job.
Okay, so refresh my memory because I've lost the order. And from Yost, and then the old guy from Oakland, right? Was Maka. Grandpa was in there, and then it was running Ron Renicky, who people really liked at first, and they loved the base stealing idea.
Yeah,
and then it became Counsell, right? Was there? Or was. There was Swain was in there for like a week at some point too, right? That
was after Yost got fired in 2008, and then in September out of nowhere they fired Yost.
I remember that like 10 games to go or whatever.
Yes, and then they brought in Ron Renicky. And then Renicky was gone in 2015, like May of 2015, and Counsell took over. He came back down for the front office. But I mean, he's not under contract for next season. The feeling is, Mike, is that he might be going to greener pastures next year, bigger money.
Well, I mean, he's the winningest Brewer in team history now, right?
Yeah.
And when he leaves, I will remember just a kid from Whitefish Bay, living his dream job, played for the organization, got to get like It's all garbage. If they can double his salary and hire him in Philadelphia or hire him in Atlanta or hire him in New York or whatever market is going to nab him, maybe the White Sox, how do you say no to that if you're Craig Counsell?
You mean he's not going to take the home team discount?
There's not going to be a Wisconsin discount for this guy. I don't think. I mean, I would love to see him stick around. It'd be cool if you had Counsell in there for 15, 20 years, but at some point, somebody's going to make you the right offer. You know what I mean? Like, I still can't believe Mark Few hasn't left to Gonzaga, but you always thought that somebody was going to give him enough money, enough opportunity, enough control to go coach one of the Blue Bloods or something. And I feel like, not that, one of the Blue Bloods is going to come calling anytime in baseball for Counsell, but somebody's going to add $5 billion to his bank account. And how do you say no to that?
Well, that's the thing is, and you're dealing with better groceries too. I mean, no disrespect to the Brewers, but I mean, you think Counsell's sitting back here on his day off on a Thursday night and saying, all right, we went out and made a trade. We got myself a 37-year-old aging first baseman.
Ooh, it's 235. Hey, his home run total is good for fourth on the Brewers right now.
It is.
All right. And his RBI total is good for third.
While other teams were in the market for Shohei, the short time he was on the market there. But yeah, I mean, does he want to be like the New York Mets? Though the rumblings are David Stearns gets the Mets job, the GM job.
Yeah.
With Counsell go to New York.
Yeah, you can see the connection.
Yeah.
And it would be amazing, wouldn't it, that one of our guys, Wisconsin's own, a guy who's been around, who's beloved, we're talking about decades of being connected to the organization, bolts for New York. Because there's a quarterback that just did that.
But it's a $35 million pay cut, though.
So, yeah, I don't think Counsell's taking a $35 million salary reduction anytime soon. I wouldn't be surprised by that. I think it would stink to see that. I don't know who would take his job. I don't know if anybody on the bench is next. Chuck, you're closer to it than I am. But it would suck to lose Craig Counsell to the Mets. It really would.
It would. And the thing that does scare me on it, that he does not have a contract for next year, because usually you're going into the season with that extra year at least under your belt, but he does not have it. Mike Wickett joining us here for a couple more minutes. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers, long time Chuck and Wickett in the mornings in Milwaukee and WSSP Radio. Mike, you and I were both working the day of the All-Star game. That next morning we came in 2011, the Brewers traded for K-Rod, which blew us both away. You remember that morning?
I remember waking up at 4 a.m. or whatever, and I roll over, and on my phone, Twitter wasn't even a thing yet, right? Like it was
coming in.
It was just coming in.
I think you were the first guy on Twitter, actually.
No, but I've spent far too much time on Twitter. But it was all over at least Facebook, and then all the sports sites. The Brewers traded for K-Rod. I can't even remember who they traded to get K-Rod. Do you remember who they sent to the Mets? That's a good. There's a bar trivia question for you.
No, I don't remember.
When you're up in Neenah. I don't even remember who they traded to get K-Rod, but when they did, it was who was the Japanese pitcher, and then the veteran were the 7th and 8th. Not Takashi Saito. Who was it Saito? I can't remember the pitcher's name. That it became a 6-inning game when you played the Brewers. They had a 7th inning guy, they had an 8th inning guy, and that was K-Rod, and then Axford came in, and it was just over and done with. And it's going to rack my brain. I'm going to have to look this up, the 2011 Brewers roster, because it's going to bother me that I can't think of.
Remember when they made the trade for K-Rod, it was like, who's going to be the closer?
Yes.
K-Rod or because they went for a position of strength. And that's why I'm wondering too, if the Brewers will actually.
It was Takashi Saito and LaTroy Hawkins. Those were the guys. That was your 6th and your 7th inning guy. If they couldn't get through 6, if your starters, if and at the time, Sean Markham, until he ran out of gas, if they couldn't get through 6, it was 6, 7, it was Saito, and it was LaTroy Hawkins, and then K-Rod and Axeman, and it was over. And that was awesome.
It was,
because we got to go to bed early.
It wasn't wasn't good enough to beat the Cardinals, but it was still fun.
They never ever should. I remember you and I were on the air screaming, "Start Giovanni Gallardo on short rest. It doesn't matter. Look at Markham's last 6 starts. He can't throw over 80 miles an hour." And I think it was 6-0 after 1 inning.
Yeah.
And then it was just like, how are you going to get to the Cardinals? This is a good Cardinals team. They just knocked out the Phillies the week before. It was a good team, and that was the worst place in the world. I'd rather have started Carlos Villanueva than started Sean Markham at that point.
All right, now we're going to throw alumni out here. Okay.
Mm-hmm. That was the second biggest trade in Brewers history.
It was a surprise because that's the last thing that we didn't. First of all, we didn't expect to trade an All-Star night.
No.
But it gave us some good material because we didn't have a lot to talk about the next day. During the All-Star break, when you're sports talk shows, what are you talking about? We did.
I think about that. The only other time that Brewers fans in recent memory have gotten super excited about a midseason acquisition was CeCe in 2008. Yep. Remember, that 6 weeks up until the playoffs when CeCe was just literally like, okay, guys, we're going in. When they pinch hit Sabathia in the playoffs against Philadelphia. Oh, my God.
Yeah. They were going to use, and then they gave Sabathia $100 million for 4 years.
Back then, that was a decent deal in 2008. Now, $25 million a year is like, it's laughed at. Like, think about offering Ohtani $100 million at 25 a year.
I know. They offered, and then he went to the Yankees. But all right. Well, final thoughts on this Brewers team. I think they're going to hold off the Reds. I'm surprised the Cardinals are as bad as they are. I think they're going to, but are they good enough, Mike, do you think, to win a series with the Braves? They got the Braves this weekend.
Yeah, that's the thing. The measuring stick is going to be Atlanta, and that awesome. There's certain teams like, great pitching staff, great hitting. Atlanta has both.
Yeah.
And I don't know if the Brewers right now have the guns to keep up with Atlanta. I would just want to see them continue to get in. I know Brewers fans are tired of making the playoffs. And then, okay, maybe they win the wild card. Maybe they get into the divisional. And there's that taste every so often of the championship series. But wouldn't you just like to be the organization that says, we're going for it? Mm-hmm. If they get Woodruff back, and I don't know, like you were joking, we're 2 months after the original arrival time of Woodruff. If they get Woodruff back, and they've got Burns, and they've got Devin Williams in the back end of the pen, and this really good pitching staff, one of the best pitching staffs in baseball, do they have enough offense? I almost want to say go for it and find a bat. I heard Juan Soto's name actually rumored to go to Milwaukee. I don't know if it's going to happen and what you have to give up and can they afford that ridiculous contract. He's got an out in 2 years. You'd be paying him $40 million a year or whatever. But wouldn't you just, it's always nice to be the bridesmaid, but wouldn't you just one time want to be the bride? Wouldn't you want to be the one that ESPN is covering 6 prospects and they brought in Shohei Ohtani or whoever is available on a bad team? It would be cool.
I know.
But the Brewers value, like the Packers, they value youth and the future so much. I just don't think they're ever going to do it. So this doesn't feel like a World Series team to me right now. They're very nondescript, like you mentioned. They're only in contention, I believe, because Christian Yelich is playing like an MVP again. And I just hope it continues. I do hope they make that move, though, before the deadline.
I hope so, too. And people watching us on YouTube, those two guys right there, your Wisconsin Broadcaster Association, was a two-time morning show?
Two-time morning show. Okay. I've got one of them around here. I don't know where
I got them all back here. I should have them more in the picture.
I should make that my virtual background in Miller Park.
Wearing it around your neck.
Yeah, I've got that somewhere.
Like Flava Flav does a clock,
Maybe my wife put that in a box and put it in the basement. I'm not sure. I don't remember.
Well, Mike, thanks for taking time. We'll go catch up maybe sometime a little bit later on in the winter.
Absolutely, Freems. Anytime. Thank you for having me, man. Continued success. Keep hitting them straightish. It's good to hear you're doing very well. Say hi to your lovely bride for me. You have any more kids, by the way? Because you keep.
No, I just got not 3.
Okay.
3.
Yeah, you and me both. Who would have thought?
You got a heck of a long way to go. You got a heck of a long way to go than I do. I got one. Brady's 12, and so I'm 6 years away from. It. But you look the same. You haven't aged much, but you're drinking the White Claws these days. That's good.
Oh my God. Frames, thank you for having me on.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks a lot. Mike Wickett joining us here on Locked On Brewers. We're going to come right back. And by the way, the Brewers will be taking on the Braves in a first of a 3-game set coming up on Friday night. It'll be Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. You catch the games on SiriusXM, the SXM app. Search Brewers. You're going to find all 162 of the Brewers season. We'll come right back, and we'll wrap this up next here on Locked On Brewers. All right. That was great talking with Mike Wickett. Though some of you have been asking about any other potential former co-hosts. We'll find out. All right. Here's how the Brewers will line up. The Braves will go with Chirinos on Friday night, Hauser for the Brewers, Tehran for the Brewers, Elder for the Braves. They have Elder listed Saturday and Sunday. That's got to be a mistake. They have him listed for 2 days. I don't think he's going on Saturday and Sunday, but the Brewers got Colin Ray going up on Sunday. So for the Brewers, Hauser, Tehran, Ray. That's what we know for sure as they head down to Atlanta to start a little bit of a road trip. Brewers won't be home until next Thursday when they see Carlos Santana's former team, the Pittsburgh Pirates, for a first of 4. It's going to do it. Thanks to Mike Wickett for joining us here on the show. And have yourself a great weekend. Let's enjoy this series, everybody. I'm Chuck Freeman, Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day.